Hey friends. So I again, I'm trying to keep myself really sort of in the channel of getting concrete and specific with my own next steps, because I'm really good at talking all around the issue and thereby avoiding the issue. I have a talent. What can I say? So I'm trying to deliberately really kind of hold myself accountable and not do that. And furthermore, the fact is, I think I'm pretty close. I think I'm pretty close to really being able to double down on something in the short run. Short run being like 3 months, and kind of dig into it wholeheartedly. In thinking about this, one of the things that's been coming up, and it's something funny enough. It was a phrase that came up a week or two ago. I forget. I think I was still at Crystal Lake. And it's related to all of the domains that I'm kind of looking at, and as I get more serious about saying, okay, this is where I'm at, this is what I'm doing for the next however long. I've also been, even just on this post, reflecting and digging into what each of these areas really is for me. And in doing that, what has showed up is that in a lot of ways, all three of them are about the same thing. If you zoom out far enough, they're about the same thing. And it's something that, this is the phrase that sort of popped into my mind, is mapping interiority. And this is something that feels very related to a lot of the things I've studied and kind of been fascinated by for most of my life. I mean, I remember reading Ken Wilber back in the early 2000s, early mid 2000s, and he talked about interiority as the internal experience of consciousness. In other words, what subjectivity, the experience of subjectivity, the I, the feeling of being an identity, the feeling of being an I, of having a locus of perspective. In other words, I think I am Robin Holloway. I look out through these two eyes and I see stuff out there in the exterior, but my experience is taking place in my interior. Well, Ken Wilber and many, many other mystics have observed and pretty, I think, meticulously mapped and codified in some ways the landscape of interiority. In other words, what are the experiences that we go through as we evolve? What do they feel like on the inside? Because the exterior is kind of easier to agree on in a way. When scientists run experiments, they're running experiments on the world. Stuff is happening in the world, and they're making observations about what happens when you do X, or when, and these experiments get to the point where they're so sophisticated you can barely even understand what they're doing, but they're happening in the exterior world. And we know that because they're observing a phenomenon. If observation is taking place, well, the observer is the interior. The observed thing is the exterior. And one of the reasons why science has made such phenomenal strides over the last several hundred years is because, by and large, when something happens in the exterior world, people tend to agree. You're going to get outliers, and you're going to get people who don't want to believe what's happening, or they don't, for whatever reason, there's kind of, competing and sometimes, genuinely divergent perspectives on what's happening, on why a given set of circumstances is working out the way it is. But by and large, you get enough of the right trained people observing a phenomenon, you're going to come to some kind of agreement about what's happening. The interior, this is where Ken Wilber really kind of had a big influence on me. The interior is very easy to relegate from the realm of observable phenomena, or at least of objectively observable phenomena. It's easy to say, this is my experience, but it's just my experience, and therefore I have no way of knowing whether anyone else has the same interior experience that I have. And in culture, in various cultures across the globe, I think there are varying degrees of agreement about how universal our interior experience really is. In other words, in some cultures, I think there's a willingness to concede that just because our experience is individual and interior, that doesn't make it unique. That it's likely that other people are also having similar analogous experiences. In other words, the interior, there's an architecture to the interior world, just like there's an architecture to the exterior world. When we're going out there and trying to find the cosmological constant and the rate at which time and space are expanding and the universe is expanding and the speed limit of the speed of light and the laws of thermodynamics, right? We're mapping the exterior world. How do things work in the exterior world? Well, you can map the interior world as well, is what Ken Wilber was saying, is basically kind of advocating and saying, if you get enough, if you talk to mystics, if you talk to practitioners who have a lot of experience with interior experiences, meditators, mystics, people who spend their time here, you get a very similar kind of agreement among them as you'd get among a group of scientists in the exterior world. 100% total agreement? Is it unquestionable? Is it absolutely, categorically, definitively universal? Very hard to say. Probably not worth trying to prove. But the reason this is inspiring to me and the reason it's encouraging to me is because it tells me, like, for example, when I'm exploring something like creative spirituality, it tells me there are road signs. There are, because the creative process is a very interior one, right? The way that I work with my own inspiration, whether it's musical or in writing or whatever the case may be, by and large, I mean, yes, I put my hands on a keyboard and then I type, or I put my hands on a piano and then I play, but the source of that and especially if it's something like a narrative, it's an interior experience, and the process of creation is very much one that I experience as a subject. What's happening to me is a series of experiences, and what I'm saying, I think, with something like creative spirituality is, if we look closely at what's happening to our interior experiences, if we look at the sequence of steps that we're going through, and we are in dialogue with other people who are also engaging in a very conscious way in this work, we may very well find that we are seeing a lot of the same things, and that a lot of the same moments, a lot of the same thresholds, a lot of the same experiences occur to us over the course of the creative process in a way that each, when I have a creative epiphany, it feels totally like my experience. It feels totally personal in a way. But I think it's a mistake to assume that it is personal. It's actually completely impersonal. It's actually my personal iteration of something universal, of a universal, like archetypal experience on an architectural schematic of how these things evolve, of how we evolve creatively and spiritually and whatnot, that is also universal. So, again, I feel like this is something that when I look at what I'm doing, I think at my highest, when I'm doing my highest, best work, I'm mapping interiority so that I can offer other people that map, that guidance to grow at least up to the point that I've gotten to, right? I mean, I can really only show someone a map for territory that I've explored. I can't, if I'm going that way and there's territory out there that I don't know, well, I can't really give them that map, but I can give them where I've come from and everywhere I've been. And in a way, it's just helpful for me to recognize that. It's helpful for me to say that and to have a way of articulating, well, what is it I do? I'm mapping interiority in a lot of these, in a lot of that's one of my things about piano. When I'm encouraging people to play the piano and to practice the piano, but not with the only reference point being, how do you play this music and how well do you play this music? Or the level of advancedness in the music being the determining factor of the experience. What I'm asking is, what is your experience? What does it do to your consciousness? Are you able to observe how the learning process of this very kind of like meticulous and rigorous creative instrumental learning affects your consciousness at the piano, away from the piano, in life, in relationships? There are major effects that it has, that practice has, just like the creative process that I'm talking about, that are really that really can be pointed to and can be sort of genuinely identified. But they're interior. They're not. It's not exterior. And I think I'm acknowledging that for myself and affirming that that's okay, and not just okay, but really important. Again, kind of as Ken Wilber would have said, it takes pioneers in this realm to do this work. We need people to be as bold and as courageous about mapping the interior as pioneers have been, as pioneers still are about mapping the exterior. There are interior journeys that are the equivalent of mankind going to Mars in the next 10 years or whatever it's going to be. And I think it's important to affirm that for people who really are enthusiastic about this work and really that's where our heart lies. That's where our interest lies, and to remind each other that it's real. That just because something is interior doesn't mean it's not real. Doesn't mean that it's not that we can't pursue it with as much rigor and with as much clarity as, say, a scientist or an economist or someone in the very concrete world of the exterior, of mapping exterior phenomena. So, for whatever reason, that's showing up today, helping me to kind of articulate my steps going forward. So, thanks for watching, folks. Much love. Have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow.